The pen felt heavier than it should have. Not because of its weight, but because every time the tip touched paper, something inside me disappeared. I could hear the scratch of ink. Slow. Deliberate. Final. Across the kitchen island, my wife watched me sign away 14 years of marriage without blinking. No tears. No shaking hands. No hesitation. Just quiet calculation. And in that moment, I realized something far more painful than the divorce itself. She had already moved on long before I ever knew she was gone. If you've ever been underestimated, if someone ever walked away thinking you were disposable, hit like, subscribe, and stay with me. Because this story isn't about loud revenge. It's about the kind that arrives quietly and leaves permanent regret. My name is Daniel Mercer. I was 42 years old when my wife decided my life with her was no longer worth the inconvenience. It was a Tuesday morning in Denver, Colorado, the kind of morning where the sun shines through the windows like everything is normal, even when your entire world is about to collapse. The divorce papers landed on the kitchen counter at exactly 7:18 a.m. Not placed. Not handed to me. Dropped. Her attorney, a man in an expensive charcoal suit with a voice polished by years of saying unpleasant things politely, cleared his throat. "Mr. Mercer," he said, adjusting his cufflinks, "these are standard documents. If you'll sign where indicated, we can proceed efficiently." Efficiently. That word rang in my ears. 14 years of marriage reduced to an administrative task. I looked up at Lauren, my wife, no, my almost ex-wife, standing near the hallway that led to our bedroom. Her arms were crossed. Her face unreadable. Not angry. Not sad. Just finished. "Lauren," I said, my voice sounding steadier than I felt, "can we talk about this? At least talk." She exhaled slowly, like I just asked something exhausting. "We've talked enough, Dan," she replied. "This is just paperwork now." Paperwork. My chest tightened. I glanced back at the documents, skimming words that blurred together: asset division, property ownership, vacate timeline. Then one sentence punched through the fog. "The marital residence shall remain the sole property of the Mercer-Hollis Family Trust." I swallowed. "What about the house?" I asked, even though something in my gut already knew the answer. Her lawyer didn't miss a beat. The property was purchased primarily using funds from Mrs. Mercer's family trust. As such, it does not qualify as a shared marital asset. He smiled politely. "You'll have 72 hours to vacate the premises." 72 hours. 14 years. I turned to Lauren, searching her face for something: guilt, doubt, hesitation, anything that suggested I mattered. I found nothing. "There's someone else, isn't there?" I asked quietly. Her expression didn't change. "That's irrelevant now." Irrelevant. That's what I was. I picked up the pen. My fingers didn't shake, but my body felt hollow, like something vital had been removed without anesthesia. Each signature felt like a small funeral. When I finished, her lawyer gathered the papers with professional satisfaction. "Thank you for your cooperation, Mr. Mercer. This will make things much simpler." Lauren turned away before I could say anything else. The bedroom door closed with a soft click. That sound stayed with me. It echoed louder than shouting ever could. They left. The house felt enormous after that. Too quiet, too clean, like a place already preparing to forget me. I sat at the kitchen counter for a long time, staring at a coffee mug Lauren had given me years ago. World's best husband. I wondered when that stopped being true. Or if it ever was. The next 3 days passed in a haze of cardboard boxes and suppressed memories. I packed only what I could carry without asking permission. Clothes. Tools. A few framed photos I couldn't yet bring myself to destroy. Every object felt like evidence of a life I'd been quietly excluded from. My younger brother, Evan, helped me load my truck on the last day. He didn't say much at first, just worked beside me, lifting boxes, tightening straps. Finally, he broke the silence. "You can stay with me and Rachel if you want," he said. "As long as you need." I shook my head. "I need to do this alone." He studied me, concern etched into his face. "You're taking this too calmly." I locked the truck bed and met his eyes. "What's the alternative?" I asked. "Beg someone who already decided I wasn't worth keeping?" He didn't argue. The apartment I found was a studio near the old rail yards, the kind of place you rent when permanence feels dangerous. The bed folded into the wall. The bathroom sink was so close to the toilet you could wash your hands while sitting down. The air smelled faintly of dust and burnt coffee. But it was mine. No one could take it from me. At night, the silence pressed against my ears. I'd lie awake staring at the ceiling, replaying conversations I never realized were endings. Moments where Lauren had pulled away just enough that I blamed work, stress, time, anything except the truth. The truth was simple and brutal. She had decided my ceiling was too low. At work, people treated me differently. Not openly, but subtly. A pause before speaking. Sympathetic smiles. Careful questions they didn't want answers to. My manager asked if I needed time off. I refused. Work was the only place where problems still made sense. Blueprints. Deadlines. Concrete solutions. Life used to feel like that too. Then one night, 2 weeks after the divorce, my phone rang. It was Evan. "Dan," he said, his voice tight, "Mom's estate lawyer finally contacted me. He says there's something we need to go through. Together." I stared at the wall, my heart picking up pace for reasons I couldn't explain. "What kind of something?" I asked. "I don't know," Evan replied. But he said Mom was very specific about timing. Our mother, Margaret Mercer, had passed away 3 years earlier. She raised us alone. Worked herself to exhaustion. Never once complained. She was the last person I expected to change my life again. But that phone call was the first crack in the darkness. I just didn't know it yet. The next morning, I drove to my mother's old house with a strange weight in my chest. It wasn't grief, I'd already carried that for 3 years. It was anticipation mixed with unease, like standing on the edge of something you don't yet have a name for. The house sat on a quiet street in Lakewood, just outside Denver. A modest, single-story place with faded blue siding and a small front porch my mom used to sweep every Sunday morning like it was a sacred ritual. Evan was already there when I arrived, leaning against his truck. "You look like hell," he said. "Feeling matches," I replied. Inside, the house smelled exactly the same, lemon cleaner and old books. Time hadn't moved much here. Mom's presence lingered in the small things, the crocheted blanket on the couch, the faded family photos, the clock that still ticked just a little too loud. The lawyer arrived 10 minutes later. Mr. Harold Finch was not what I expected. No sleek suit. No aggressive confidence. Just a quiet man in his 60s with tired eyes and a worn leather briefcase that looked like it had lived a full life. "Gentlemen," he said gently, shaking our hands. "Thank you for coming. Your mother was very precise about this." That word again. Precise. He sat at the dining table and opened his briefcase slowly, deliberately. "There's one item in your mother's estate that could not be released until 3 years after her passing," he said. "And only if both of you were present." Evan frowned. "I thought everything was settled years ago." "So did most people," Finch replied. He removed a thick manila envelope sealed with dark red wax. My heart rate picked up. "Your mother instructed that Daniel open this." I swallowed and reached for the envelope. The wax cracked softly under my thumb. Inside were 2 things. A handwritten letter. And a black bank card. Not plastic blue. Not flashy. Black. Heavy. My name embossed in silver. I stared at it, my pulse roaring in my ears. "What the hell is that?" Evan whispered. I unfolded the letter. Mom's handwriting was neat, careful, the way it always was when she wanted to be absolutely understood. I cleared my throat and began to read aloud. "My dear boys. If you are reading this, then I've been gone for 3 years. I hope you've learned how strong you truly are without me there to remind you. I kept something from you both, not because I didn't trust you, but because I loved you. Your father was not just a mechanic. He was Daniel Mercer Sr., heir to the Mercer Industrial Group. When we fell in love, he chose a quiet life over a wealthy one. His family never forgave him for that. Before he died, your father created a trust, one his family could not touch. He insisted it could only be accessed after you had lived independently, without knowing it existed. I agreed, because I wanted you to grow into men who understood the value of effort, not entitlement. Daniel, I've made you the primary trustee, but Evan has equal rights. Use this wisely. Build something meaningful. Be good men. All my love, always. Mom. The room went silent. The letter slipped from my fingers and landed softly on the table. Evan stared at me. Say that again, he said. Say the part about Dad. I couldn't. My throat closed. Finch spoke quietly. The card is connected to the trust account. You'll need to visit Frontier Private Bank downtown to verify identity and access details. How much? Evan asked. Finch shook his head. Your mother never disclosed the balance to me. Only the institution knows. I picked up the card again. It felt unreal. Like a prop. Like something that belonged to someone else. The bank. Frontier Private Bank looked like money. Marble floors. Soft lighting. Silence that cost something. Evan and I stood out immediately. Work boots, worn jackets, the posture of men who'd never been in a place like this unless something had gone wrong. The receptionist's polite smile faltered when she saw the card. One moment, please. She disappeared. 30 seconds later, a man in a tailored navy suit appeared. Mr. Mercer? He asked. That's me. I'm Thomas Whitaker, Senior Account Director. Please follow me. We were led into a private office with floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking downtown Denver. Whitaker closed the door carefully. Before we proceed, he said, I need to verify your identity. I handed him my ID. He typed. Stopped. Typed again. His posture changed. Slowly, he turned the screen toward me. For a moment, my brain refused to process the number. Then it hit. $912,438,217.63. $912 million. I felt dizzy. Evan made a strangled sound beside me. That's a mistake, he said. Whitaker shook his head, his voice steady but reverent. No, sir. This trust was established 37 years ago with an initial deposit of $25 million. Conservative investments. Long-term holdings. Real estate. Compounding interest. I stared at the screen. My life before this moment felt suddenly smaller. Not because of the money, but because of what it exposed. Lauren had left me thinking I was worth nothing. And here I was, sitting on more than most people could imagine. Whitaker continued. Once this account shows activity, certain alerts will trigger. Transactions over $100,000 require verification. I swallowed hard. So, this is real? Yes, Mr. Mercer. It is. We left the bank in silence. Denver felt louder. Brighter. Sharper. Evan laughed, not happily but wildly. Do you realize what this means? He said. Lauren divorced you thinking she won. I stopped walking. That thought hit like a punch. Lauren. Her father. The way they'd looked at me. The way she'd walked away without regret. Part of me burned to show her. To watch her face collapse under the weight of her mistake. But another part, quieter, steadier, held me back. That part sounded like my mother. Build something meaningful. 3 days later, I drove past one of my construction sites. An old warehouse conversion project, stalled, underfunded, on the verge of being gutted for profit. Affordable housing units were about to be cut. Community space eliminated. I sat in my truck, engine idling. This was something I understood. This was something real. I called Whitaker. I want to acquire the entire project, I said. Quietly. There was a pause. Understood. 2 weeks later, I owned it. Through a shell company. No announcement. No press. I still showed up in my boots. Still took orders. Still listened. The revenge wasn't loud. It was patient. And it had just begun. Success didn't announce itself. It didn't knock on my door or change my reflection overnight. It arrived quietly, in progress reports, signed permits, and early mornings where I stood on job sites watching something broken slowly become whole again. The warehouse project transformed faster than anyone expected. Affordable units stayed. Green spaces expanded. A community center was added instead of stripped away. The crew didn't know who the real investor was. They just knew the money stopped disappearing, and the vision suddenly made sense. I still wore the same boots. Still drank bad coffee. Still went home to my small studio apartment where the bed folded into the wall with a tired creak. But inside me, something had shifted. I wasn't trying to prove anything anymore. I was building because I wanted to. 6 months after the divorce, I attended a charity gala. I almost didn't go. Formal events reminded me too much of Lauren's world, a place where appearances mattered more than intentions. But the foundation attached to my shell company had made a sizable donation to a children's hospital, and attendance was expected. I rented a tux. Stood straighter. Walked in alone. The ballroom glittered with money and polished smiles. And then I saw her. Lauren stood near the bar in a deep blue dress, her hand resting possessively on the arm of a tall man with perfect posture and practiced confidence. She looked happy. Or at least, convincingly so. Our eyes met. Her expression flickered, confusion first, then surprise, then something sharper. Calculation. She excused herself and approached. "Daniel," she said carefully. "What are you doing here?" I smiled politely. "Supporting a cause." She glanced down at my tux, then back up at my face. "You look different." "I am." Her date joined us, extending his hand. "Mark Reynolds," he said firmly. "Daniel Mercer." His grip tightened slightly. I didn't react. Lauren cleared her throat. "Daniel works in construction," she said quickly, as if explaining my presence. I nodded. "That's right." She waited for more. For defensiveness. For embarrassment. It never came. After an awkward pause, she smiled thinly. "Well, it was nice seeing you." They walked away. I watched her glance back once. Not with longing. With doubt. And that was enough. The attempted return. A week later, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered. "Daniel," a familiar voice said. "This is Richard Holloway. Lauren's father. I'd like to meet with you." I almost laughed. We met the next afternoon in his office. Top floor, glass walls, city sprawled beneath us. He didn't offer a handshake. Straight to business. "Lauren has made a mistake," he said. "She'd like to discuss reconciliation." I leaned back in the chair. "That's interesting." "She didn't understand your full situation at the time," he continued. There it was. The quiet admission. I looked at him calmly. She understood enough. "Richard studied me. You're involved in that Aurora development, aren't you?" "So I've heard." He smiled tightly. "Daniel, life is about leverage. Lauren could be an asset to you." I stood. "Your daughter didn't leave because we grew apart," I said evenly. "She left because she misjudged my value." His smile vanished. "I don't need assets," I continued. "I need peace." I walked out. The final realization. That evening, I drove to my mother's grave. Sat beside it. Told her everything. The divorce. The money. The choice not to go back. "I get it now," I said quietly. "You didn't hide the money to protect us from the world." I smiled sadly. "You hid it to protect us from ourselves." The wind moved gently through the trees. For the first time since the divorce, my chest felt light. The project opened 3 months later. Families moved in. Kids ran through the courtyard. Laughter echoed off the brick walls that once held nothing but rust and abandonment. I stood at the edge of the crowd, unnoticed. That was the best part. Across the street, a familiar car slowed. Lauren sat inside. Watching. She didn't get out. Didn't wave. Didn't call. She just stared, not at me, but at what I had built without her. Then she drove away. Losing everything taught me something wealth never could. Money doesn't reveal who you are. It reveals who others thought you were. Lauren didn't leave me because I failed. She left because she couldn't see past her own expectations. And that was never my burden to carry. If this story stayed with you, like and subscribe. And tell me in the comments. What's the most powerful quiet victory you've ever witnessed? Because sometimes, the greatest revenge is becoming someone they'll never have access to again.